So, as I mentioned, you're here because we've invited everyone that owns one of our products, and that's iMerge, our duplicate merge tool, iEmail, our Outlook integration, iMove, which is national change of address if you're in the States, for the OCU and Asia Pacific. Sorry, we don't have that yet. Our Activity Importer Plus, and iImport, the two easiest to use tools for importing data into IMIS. iMap, which is geolocation updating in IMIS. FREs for changing both posted pledges and gifts in IMIS after the fact. If you are a fundraising client, you really should have that product. iDonate is our online giving solution. Page filter, how to make Rise do things it was never intended to do. Change things with Rise or even public view that just aren't built into the product yet. So very powerful. iDocument, our newest product for documenting your entire database. If you are planning on leaving, be a nice thing to do, and or if you ever switch solution providers or you're coming into the organization brand new, you can only imagine how powerful having documentation would be. So those are our products, and of course, Meeting Closer. This is our third most popular product, Meeting Closer. And we've got 200 organizations. Sorry for those of you in Asia Pacific for the spelling of organizations. They put their trust in Meeting Closer. We're already on version 4.2.33. All the enhancements, for the most part, have come from your suggestions. So thank you so much. We couldn't have done it without you. We're always looking for suggestions, and I'll tell you how to submit those in a little bit. So real quick, if you've been on these before, we kind of talk about the history, the why and the how did we create the product. We're going to go through some different scenarios of how to use the product. Then we're going to cover some what's new stuff that you may not have known about. Some important stuff, how to get the latest version, how to get help, and then, of course, some Q&A. In the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and type them in the GoToMeeting, and I'll get to those at the end. Okay. So, why do we create Meeting Closer? Well, customers needed a way to close their events and expos without losing the data. I would go into a client and basically they'd have thousands of open events or expos, and they had those open events and expos because I said, don't close them, you'll lose everything. And then they said, well, even if we do close them, we want to purge that and clean up that window. Occasionally we make a mistake and we need to reopen for cloning. So, all right, that's a good reason too. And then people need to create CEU and CME and CPE records on the date of the function and on the fly multiple times. What does that mean? Event's over. I've got half of the test results in. I really would like to post those. I can't do that using IMIS. I got one shot to close that event, so I got to wait until all the test results come in. With Meeting Closer, you can add the test results in, close the meeting, and then just continue from there and reopen. You can just keep adding it and reclosing, and it'll continue to create the CEU, CME, and CPE records. So very powerful, and I'll show you that. And then the other thing that's important to remember is those records are created with the actual date they took the class. When you close them in IMIS, it uses the date that you're closing the event, and that's not good. How do we do it? Pretty straightforward. We mimicked some of the IMIS code. We were creating functions function activities way before IMIS was. So if you ever notice, our function activity is different than theirs, and that's because we had it first. We optionally moved the MeetMaster data. That's the data that you see in IMIS, your open events. We moved that into a backup table, so nothing's ever deleted with Meeting Closer. In fact, early versions of Meeting Closer had the ability to delete data, and we thought that's just silly. If you want to do that, go use IMIS, because we're not going to put something into Meeting Closer that we don't believe in. So finally, we create a union view of both the backup data as well as the MeetMaster data. So if you want to do some custom reporting, and I'll show you how to do that today. And as I mentioned before, the CUs, CMEs, or CPEs, whatever you might call them, they're all with the date of the function, the end date of the function. They're not the end date of the, or they're not the actual day you're closing. If you do forget to put a date in on the function, it'll use the meeting end date. And if you forget that as well, I don't know if you should have a job. But anyway, if you do, then in that case, it will use the actual day of closing the meeting. So let's go through how we see people using Meeting Closer, right? We've got our NIAG San Antonio conference. It's over. It's time to close it. We're going to generate some activities. I'd like to have a meeting activity. I want to know who went to the event. And then certain functions I'd like to have an activity for. I'd like to know who went to the full day Crystal, who went to SSRS, and who went on our tour. And let's create CEUs for those who went to the full day SSRS training, okay? So we're going to do it, and we're going to do it fast. We're going to go into Meeting Closer. If you don't have a pretty blue login screen like this, you're using an old version of Meeting Closer. I'm going to go in. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to find my NIAG San Antonio 13 conference. That's great. Actually, before I close that, hold on one second, though. Let's go and make sure we've entered the attendance. We've had 2 people that have done the attendance already. So we're going to go to Define an Event. I'm going to jump into here. I'm going to look at my full-day SSRS training, and I'm going to go out here and say, let's look at the CEU, and let's look at the attendance. And yes, Marcy Farmhaven and Terry Boone have put their attendance in. We haven't heard from the other people. They haven't scored yet, so that's fine. We're going to close that out. So NIAG San Antonio, we're going to go over here. We're going to generate our meeting activity. We're going to generate our function activity, our speaker activity. We're going to hide it from IMUS. We're going to generate our CEUs, and we're going to use the meeting function end date for those CEUs. If you wanted to use today's date, you would just uncheck that. Well, what are the activities that we're generating? We're going to generate activities for the Crystal, the SSRS training, and the Alamo Tour, and we're not going to generate an activity for the main registration, because to have a meeting function, meeting activity, and then a main registration function activity, they're redundant. I really just want the one. So that all looks good. Let's go ahead and close hide the meeting. You want to sure you want to do that? You bet. It's done. If we jump back into IMUS and we hit define an event, you don't see it anymore. It's completely closed. Okay, so that was pretty easy, right? So wait a minute. We just got in 2 more people for the full day SSRS training. 2 additional people have passed, okay? So let's go ahead, re-show the event in IMUS, and update the attendance, okay? Then we're going to reclose the event, and we're going to do this really fast, okay? So if we go and we look back in IMUS, and we look at, say, Terry Boone's record here, we can see that if we look at her activities, she got our function activity, she got her CEU credits, she got the meeting activity, and the full day SSRS training. And of course, if we look at Doug Hunt, we can see there's no CEU. He didn't pass, right? We didn't get anything on that, but he got all the same activities. So I can't do anything with this event because it's hidden from IMUS. So I'm going to go into Meeting Closer. I'm going to highlight the event down below. I'm going to say show that for cloning, okay? We say show for cloning because it still leaves it as closed. If we look in IMUS and we refresh our event, there it is, NIAG San Antonio. I can go in here now. I can jump down to my SSRS training. I can go to my CEUs. I can update attendance, and I can go and say, let's go and mark Doug Hunt completed, and let's mark John Colby completed, okay? So these people are now complete. Great, we've updated our attendance. Back into Meeting Closer. I'm going to reclose or hide the meeting, and I get a message here when I say okay. It says, hey, heads up. We already created activities for certification for NIAG SA13. They're already out there. Are you sure you want to force more certification activities to be created? This is very important. Meeting Closer is only going to add new activities. It will never change anything that it's created. So if I had set the attendance for Terry Boone back down to 0, Meeting Closer would not erase her CEU. It's only going to create more activities if you've added some. So just like that, I updated my attendance. I see, yeah, you're darn right I want that. I reclose it. I can go back to Doug's record, and I can now go and say there's his CEU. It's right there. So it's gone and added it. So very powerful if you're using CEUs in IMUS and you need to be creating those activities. Okay. So years gone by, someone walks in the door and says, got a problem here. You closed that event, and I forgot to clone it. So we're going to go ahead now and show the event for cloning. We're going to then clone it in IMUS, and we're going to reclose. All right? So really easy to do, right? Back here, show for cloning. Jump back into IMUS. There it is. Clone that event. We're going to make it the 14. Great. Now I can just go reclose it. It's going to warn me again that, hey, I've got some CEU activities out there, and no big deal, I know about them. Yeah, continue. It didn't recreate anything new because I didn't update attendance. And now my meeting window is nice and clean. I just have my 14 out here. So kind of cool stuff, very easy to use. What have we added since the last couple years? Yeah, there's a new user interface. We added the ability to close the meeting multiple times, and it'll add additional activities. So I showed you CEU. The same thing will work if you need to add additional registrants to the event. You can reopen the event. You can go in and register someone for the event, reclose the event. It will create all of his or her activities and reclose the event. So that was a huge enhancement to be able to modify an event after it was closed and reclose it and have new activities created. Once again, it will not delete any activity that's already been created. So if you go in and cancel someone after you've closed the meeting, you're going to need to manually update those activities. They're not going to be erased. It just gets into a dirty, slippery slope there when we start deleting things, and it violates our concept of meeting closer does not delete data. Okay. Filter on functions according to the create activity detail option in IMIS. When we are looking at functions in IMIS, or when we're actually setting up a meeting in IMIS, I can go out here and I can say, for main registration, I do not want to create a detail activity. However, for full day SSRS training, I do want to create a detail activity. So this was added to IMIS somewhere along the way. And what we did is we said, okay, meeting closer, when someone's going to close a meeting, okay, in this case, if we go to function activities and we say only include functions with the create detail activity option selected in IMIS, what that says is read IMIS and figure out what functions I should be creating an activity for. So if I click that, nothing changes here because I already had it on there. But if I were to actually exclude something and then go back and reset this, you'll see that it'll go and put everything back the way it was. So that's a quick way. You don't have to use that. You can go in here and manually uncheck things or do whatever you want. But if you want to read from IMIS, you can do that. Okay. We added event type filtering options. So when you're looking at your events in IMIS, and you say search, you can filter on expos and meetings. There was a question this morning here in the States, what about exhibition, which is another module? Those unfortunately show under meetings. We're going to do an enhancement request to probably move those under expos as well. This is a search feature that I'm not sure a lot of people use in Meeting Closer, but I can go out here and search for a given meeting code or a title or a date range. And the reason I might want to do that, maybe I want to close all meetings in the last month. Remember, with Meeting Closer, I can highlight multiple events and close them all at once. If you're on a slightly older version, we just had a bug with that, but that's fixed now. So I can go out here, highlight these all, and say close hide meeting, and it will automatically close and hide multiple meetings at once. When you're installing, you're going to be prompted from the first time you run it, or if it's an upgrade, or you've just upgraded IMIS, you're going to need to enter an SA username and password. It used to require the SA username, and that was a problem, especially if you're hosted. So now you can just enter something called an SA equivalent. And then this is big, especially for you folks in Asia Pacific. If you change your number of users, we require a new license key, and that was a real pain in the butt for you guys, especially late in the day when we're asleep here in the States, and you're going and putting the new your new IMIS license key in, and suddenly your CSI products don't work. So we've enhanced all of our licensing to go off your IMIS serial number now. So as long as we have that in our system will call back here to the States and say, are they legit? And it will relicense. So you no longer have to worry about license keys as long as we have your serial number. Okay, a couple things that I'd like you to remember, the whole reason you're here. Never reuse an event or a meeting code. And the reason you can do that is right now in IMIS, I don't have a NIOG SA13 anymore. It's hidden, so IMIS doesn't know about it. And if you do that, it's going to prevent Meeting Closer from closing the event, because what happens is all of a sudden Meeting Closer doesn't know what's what. And I'll show you that in a minute. And by the way, if you do this, catch it, go ahead and call us, and we'll walk you through the fixes that actually we've added to the program now. So what happens is you used to see this, okay, that you've got this, please contact your reseller or CSI to fix the issue. That just meant that we've got a lot of SQL work to do. You're in trouble. Well, we've changed that now, and I'm going to show you a couple things here. So I don't have the event here. If I accidentally go out there and I'm going to create a new event and I go NIAG SA13 and I go the bad event because I am reusing a code, right? So I'm going to create a brand new event, but really I'm reusing a code. I don't know why I'm doing this. Watch what happens when you reuse a code. The minute you hit save, all of your functions instantly populate with the people registered and everything. This should be your #1 key that you've just made a terrible, terrible mistake. You don't want to do this anymore. You need to stop right now because something's wrong. But yet people still continue. I don't know why. I don't understand how they think that IMUS is magical enough to know all the functions you wanted. What it's doing is it's seeing the functions that match this event because they're still out there. Remember, we didn't delete them. So when you go to run Meeting Closer after doing something crazy like this, I'll show you what happens. When you run Meeting Closer and you log in for the first time, you get this nice warning and says, hey, the meeting code in this database has been used twice. We're going to walk you through correcting the event code. And you know what? We're fine with you contacting us. We'll walk you through, but you can trust the system, but we're happy to help you as part of your support agreement fix this. So when you're ready to proceed, you say, okay, ready? By the way, it tells you to read the manual first, but we're going to say, okay. First thing it says is go back to IMUS and clone that event you just made and make it unique this time, okay? And then when you're done, come back here. And remember, once again, your event code should always be unique. So we're going to go back to define an event. We're going to find our 13 that shouldn't be out there, and I'm going to clone it. I'm going to add an A on the end of that. It's cloned now. So now it says, okay, after you've done that, click OK. So you say, great, OK. Now it says, hey, I got a name. I need the name of that new event that you just put in there, all right? And I'm going to need some guidance on which registrations need to be moved to that new event. So after that, we're going to clean it all up, right? So first thing we do is, okay, what name did you just enter? I called it NIAG SA13A. Now, enter the number of days to be included after the end date of the original meeting. So what this is asking for is, I need to know what registrants belong to the original meeting. If you have not registered anybody for the original meeting after the meeting date, you can leave this as 0. But say you had 10 extra people register afterwards, you could change this to 5 days or whatever. Normally your events are at least a year apart, but I go OK, and it says, hey, it's going to now move the registrations and their corresponding records to the newly created one for those that have occurred 0 days or more after the original event date. Click OK. It's completed. Okay. Remember, when you created, everyone who had attended the original meeting was instantly registered the new. You would have seen this. It's basically telling you, you should have seen this, but we've helped you out here. So now we have corrected your issue. We've dropped you right back in here. Life is good. You have nothing else to worry about. You can see all is fine now, and Meeting Closer has saved the day. So that was a lot of work to add that in. Notice NIAG SA13 is gone from here now. So we've added that new feature. If you do make that mistake, the sooner you catch it, the better. So what else? If you're upgrading IMUS, you have to drop Meet Master view prior to upgrading IMUS. That's a simple SQL command. You don't need to know SQL. You just need to tell your solution provider or whoever is doing your upgrade that they have to do that. That's important because our view is based off of the current Meet Master table in IMUS. And if the Meet Master table in IMUS changes, as it does for many upgrades, then what's going to happen is when that view is still out there, the IMUS upgrade is going to fail near the end. So just a heads up on that. It's in the manual, something to keep in mind. If you are purging IMUS using the purge script, you do want to check out the manual because the manual tells you the changes you need to make in the purge script. These meetings are still going to live out there, and so if you need to delete someone that was registered for a meeting, it's still a live meeting as far as IMUS is concerned, and it's not going to delete it. So because we don't delete data in IMUS or in Meeting Closer, you have to modify your purge script because you have Meeting Closer. If you hide the meeting or event, as you saw me do, I didn't have to do that. So this move to hidden meetings, I didn't have to do that. I'm able to close an event and not have that checked. It stays in IMUS. Everything's fine. But if I do move it to hidden meetings, as you saw me do, all of the built-in reporting in IMUS for the event is not going to work anymore. And so what we tell you there is see the manual for reports on closed events. And that's great, but we need to enhance that. So you're probably looking into reporting with IQA these days. And if you're going to report on closed, hidden events using IQA, you're going to need to create a new business object called CS Event All. And you want to use that in place of CS Event. And I'm going to show you this, but we are adding it to the manual. Okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fire up and I'm going to go into my staff view. Normally, I have this all prepped, so I'm sorry it's not prepped for you right now. But I'm going to sign in, and I'm going to jump over here to Rise, and I'm going to go down to the Business Object Designer because I need to create a new business object. I'm going to say New, and it's a business definition, and I'm going to call this CS Event All. Okay? I hit Create Object. I go to my database, and right here it's going to say add a table. This is tables and views, and IMUS does some fun stuff with sorting. It looks all alphabetical and everything's great, and then right when we get to the end, right before we get into our views, it decides to do some funny stuff. So there's my Meet Master view. Okay, so interesting on the some of the sorting here, but there's my Meet Master view. You say OK. Down here under columns, you're going to go add all its properties. It has now added all of those in there. I have this nice new view. You save it, and then you go ahead and you publish this view. This will be the view you will use for your IQAs if you are hiding events. We will be adding that to the manual, but you guys have it on video now, and so you can go from there. So that's an important thing to do, and then you will use that in place of CS Event. Also remember, Meeting Closer is very strict about activity flowdown. What's activity flowdown? That is the ability to add additional fields to the meeting activity. If you have that set up wrong in your IMUS database, IMUS does not error out. It just doesn't do it, okay? But Meeting Closer is a little pickier. It says we're not going to ignore a setup option that's wrong, so you need to correct it. Here's an example. If I said take the order number and put it in the activity date field, Meeting Closer is going to say, you got a problem. That's not a valid date time field. I'm not going to close this meeting until you fix this setup in IMUS. So that's important to fix. Here's another one. I'm going to try and use a field from my name table and drop it in the activity. You can't do that. The only tables that can be added only fields that can be added to the activity come from the tables Meet Master, Order Meet, and or Orders. Those are the only fields you're allowed to use in here. It's just the way IMUS is. Last, version 4 requires SQL 2005. If you are still on SQL 2000, shame on you. However, you cannot go higher than version 3 of Meeting Closer. So do not install version 4. It won't work. SQL 2000 is 16 years old almost now. You really need to be thinking about upgrading. In fact, if you're on 2005, you should be thinking about upgrading. But anyway, we still support that. So if you like what you saw and you're interested in getting it, first off, make sure you're on the latest release of Meeting Closer. That's on our login screen now, and you can go to Help About. And our latest version is 4.2.33. You can go to our website and click Log On to get the latest release. And when you do that, you're going to be prompted for your username and password, which you have probably lost, and that's okay. So just go ahead and email sales@csiinc.com, and we'll get you your login to our website. And if you are on a very old release of Meeting Closer, we can get you a new product key. Remember, the new one will self-license. Scroll down to our current product releases. You will see every product that you are current on maintenance with. You can even click on documentation if you want and find out what we've added. So if you're on version 4.2.22 of Meeting Closer and you go, wow, they've had 11 versions, you can go and find out what they are. Please note that we don't release every version, so you might see 4.2.22 and then 2.5 and 2.8 and then 3.3. Some of those other versions are betas that don't pass, and it's just our best practice that if we make a version here and it is tested, it gets a version number. So if we have a programmer who's not feeling well, sometimes, you know, we have a couple different versions before the releases because they keep making mistakes. So don't worry if you don't see a 4.2.32. We just never released it. However, you can click right here on documentation and see what the latest release offers over yours. You're going to go ahead and open up the file. It's a zip file. I like to save it on my computer or my network. I use an erase me directory on my own computer. It's just stuff that I can erase. Remember, Meeting Closer can be installed on as many PCs as you like there. You can install it on everyone's PC. We don't care. You know, it's whoever you trust to close meetings. So, but I throw it on my erase me directory. When you go to install it, it's very straightforward to install. It's normally user installable. I'm always asked how much time to install Meeting Closer. You know, it takes no time at all. But the first time you do it, you will need your SA, username and password, or something equivalent. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then you'll get that from your IT person or your solution provider. And if they don't feel comfortable giving it to you, then they can just walk over and enter it. The screen looks like this. You get a screen that says Meeting Closer needs to update the database server. Click OK. And when you do that, you've got your username and password. It defaults to SA. You're welcome to change it. No big deal. If you're stuck, please read the manual. Brooke here in CSI Support spends a lot of time on the manuals. She cares deeply about the product. And she's also in support, so she knows when you didn't read the manual. So if you don't see something in the manual and or you want something added to clarify something to help you out, please, I'll tell you where to email us in a minute. We want to hear about that. We want our manuals to be world-class. If you're still stuck, go ahead and email support@csiinc.com and give us as much as you can, right? Give us what you were trying to do, you know, how it crashed, you know, and then how about a screenshot? Screenshots are just so huge. If you can give us that, it's wonderful. And then we have a feature in Meeting Closer called Report Runtime Errors. Please make sure that is turned on. If you do that, it really helps us because every error you get in Meeting Closer is sent to us. And so if you submit a screenshot saying, I was trying to close this meeting, here's a screenshot, I tried to do this at 4:12 p.m. my time in Sydney, we can go into our error log and see the exact error and help you figure it out. And that's really powerful, especially if we're on different time zones. We do respond in about 2 business days. Those are 2 business days CSI, and then we are in the central time zone in the state. So if we are getting it after, say, 5 p.m. or 5:30 p.m. Central Time, which right now for the Sydney folks is going to be, I believe, 9 a.m. your time. No, it's 10 a.m. your time. If we get it after that, then we're closed. We're going home. So it's 2 business days after that. We tend to run about 1 business day, but you know, I have plenty of emails from people saying, I submitted this yesterday at 10 a.m. and I still haven't heard a response. It's like, well, we just woke up, so I'm really sorry. Silly questions. I got a great idea for an enhancement. You want to enhance the manual, the product, email us at support@csiinc.com. We review those once a month. Are we having more events? You bet. If you go to our webinars page on our website, you will see that. In addition, all of the previous webinars have been recorded, and they are out there as well. If you want to show your coworkers the powers, if you just go to actual Meeting Closer, that's our salesy kind of side of thing, and there is a webinar out there. And then, of course, this webinar is going to be out there under there. So I'm going to open up to any questions here. If you have a question, go ahead and fire away. Give it a couple minutes. Like I said, there's going to be, we're going to offer, you know, the ability to email me right there if you have any questions. That's my email. So if we hang up here and you have forgotten or just come up with a question, feel free to reach out to me and we can go from there. All right, good news. I'm not seeing any questions, and I have a glass of wine waiting for me at home. So I'm going to go ahead and end this meeting now. Feel free to email me at that email address if you have a question. Happy to help you, and we will go from there. Thanks again for taking some of your evening or morning to spend it with me. I hope it was worth your time.